It started with a scene that wasn't even supposed to mean much, just a rehearsal, a retake, a soft moment between Kang Tae-ho and Shin Ha-rai that the director called a filler. But sometimes, fillers hold the most truth. The cameras rolled, the lights softened, and for a second that stretched too long, their world blurred. No script could capture what passed through their eyes, a hesitation, a recognition, a quiet ache that neither of them expected to surface again. Months had passed since Tae-ho and Ha-rai's story ended on screen. They had their happy ending, or so everyone believed. The proposal had been accepted, the office gossip silenced, and their world wrapped neatly in laughter and love. Yet here they were, standing once again in the same office, surrounded by memories that refused to stay in the past. The production team had gathered to shoot a short special scene, something for the fans, a little reunion, a glimpse of what might have been after happily ever after. But for Eun-bin and Tae-ho, it felt heavier. It felt like unfinished business. The moment they saw each other, it was like time folded. Her voice was still soft, that familiar balance of warmth and wit, and his smile, restrained, deliberate, carried that same depth that once made her forget her lines. They laughed about it, like professionals do, but beneath their laughter was something fragile, something that had quietly survived the wrap-up party, the interviews, and the months apart. The director gave the cue. Just a simple scene. Ha-rai waits for Tae-ho in the rain. He arrives, apologizes, wipes her cheek, says he missed her. Then you both smile. Easy. It should have been easy. But the rain wasn't fake this time, it fell with a rhythm that seemed to echo the beating of two hearts trying to stay in character. Eun-bin's hair clung to her cheek, her coat darkened with dampness, and she blinked rapidly to see through the drizzle. Tae-ho stepped closer, his umbrella trembling slightly in his grip. The camera zoomed in, and that's when the world went still. Cut, the director said. But they didn't hear it. They stayed there, eyes locked, water running between them like liquid glass. For those few seconds, it wasn't Tae-ho and Ha-rai. It was Eun-bin and Tae-ho, caught between memory and emotion, replaying something neither could name. Later, someone on set whispered that they had to redo that take 5 times, not because it was wrong, but because the director said it looked too intimate. Every time they replayed it, the feeling deepened, grew heavier, more real. And when they finally wrapped, no one said anything. The crew clapped softly, and the two of them smiled politely, but there was a silence that followed them off set, the kind that lingers when something has been said without words. That night, Eun-bin sat alone in her car, replaying the scene on her monitor. She watched the way he looked at her not as an actor, but as someone remembering something precious. His gaze lingered a heartbeat too long, his voice trembled slightly when he said, "I missed you." She had felt that tremor before, during the last scene of Business Proposal, when he kissed her forehead instead of her lips, unscripted, gentle, but too meaningful to ignore. The internet called it method acting. She called it something else. She thought about the months after the show ended, the way they would occasionally text each other after midnight. Nothing heavy, just shared songs, late-night thoughts, quiet jokes about how people still shipped them. But every message carried a tone that slipped between friendship and something unsaid. And tonight, after that scene, she felt it again, that fragile line shaking. Her phone buzzed. A message from him. "You okay? You looked different during that last take." She hesitated. Then typed, "You too. Maybe the rain did it." There was a pause, then another text came in. Or maybe it wasn't just the rain. She didn't reply. But she smiled, that small, defeated kind of smile that people wear when they know they're already lost. The next morning, during the editing session, the director called them both in to review the footage. The scene looked breathtaking. The rain caught the light perfectly, and their expressions were raw, almost painfully beautiful. The editor turned to the director. "This doesn't look like acting," he said quietly. The director only nodded. "That's why it works." But it didn't feel like work anymore. Every time they watched that scene, they both went quiet. Even when surrounded by people, there was this invisible connection pulling them back to that moment under the rain. It became their secret, the scene they couldn't stop replaying, both on the screen and in their minds. Weeks later, the special episode aired. Fans went wild. Comments flooded in, that scene felt too real. Did you see the way he looked at her? There's no acting there. Social media buzzed with theories, edits, slow-motion analyses of their glances. What no one knew was that Eun-bin had re-watched that scene more than anyone else. She watched it late at night when she missed the noise of the set, the warmth of his presence, the simplicity of pretending to be someone in love. Then, one quiet evening, Tae-ho sent her a clip, that same rain scene, but edited by fans with music overlaid. She watched it, her heart beating faster with each frame. Beneath the video, he had typed one sentence. "I think we left something unfinished." The message sat there like a question she didn't know how to answer. Because deep down, she knew he was right. That day, under the rain, something had shifted. Something too delicate to name, too real to hide behind fiction. They met again a few weeks later for a magazine shoot. The theme was after the proposal, elegant, dreamy, filled with nostalgia. When she walked into the studio, he was already there, wearing a simple white shirt, his hair slightly tousled, his smile soft but cautious. The photographer positioned them close, too close, and asked for natural chemistry. They didn't need to try. Every pose felt like a memory they had lived before. Every touch, every glance, was an echo of that scene. Between takes, he leaned closer and whispered, "You still think it was just the rain?" She looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want it to be?" He didn't answer. But when the camera clicked, his hand brushed hers, light, deliberate, unmistakable. The photographer caught the moment perfectly. Later, that photo would go viral, captioned by fans as too real to be edited. After the shoot, they shared a quiet coffee in the studio's corner. No cameras, no scripts, no pretense. He asked if she still watched the rain scene sometimes. She laughed softly. "I stopped counting," she admitted. He nodded, eyes thoughtful. Maybe that's because it wasn't really acting. There was a pause, long enough for truth to find a way through. Then she said, almost to herself, maybe it was both. Acting, and remembering. Outside, rain began to fall again, soft and rhythmic, just like that day. Without thinking, he held the umbrella above her as they stepped outside, walking slowly toward their cars. It felt familiar, cinematic, but painfully real this time. No cameras followed, no director shouted cut. Just them, two people replaying a moment the world thought was fiction. Months later, that special became one of the most talked about behind-the-scenes moments in Korean drama history. People still dissected the rain scene, wrote theories about their chemistry, compared it to their off-screen appearances. But what no one realized was that for Eun-bin and Tae-ho, that moment was never about performance. It was a confession that slipped through the cracks of professionalism, a truth disguised as acting. Even now, whenever interviews brought up that scene, they both laughed it off, polite, playful, careful. But every time she mentioned it, her eyes softened. Every time he talked about it, his tone changed, gentler, lower, almost reverent. Because no matter how much time passed, that scene stayed with them. It wasn't just a memory on film, it was a place they both returned to quietly, whenever life felt too ordinary. Sometimes, in interviews, Eun-bin would be asked, "Which moment from Business Proposal do you remember most?" She'd smile thoughtfully and say, "The rain scene." It was honest. And somewhere, miles away, Tae-ho would see the clip of her saying it, and smile the same way he did that day, small, knowing, helplessly fond. They never replayed that scene together again, but they didn't need to. It lived between them, unspoken but alive, like a shared heartbeat. A moment that blurred the line between acting and feeling, between fiction and something dangerously real. Because sometimes, the most intimate stories aren't written in scripts, they happen quietly, in the rain, when two souls forget they're being watched. And maybe that's why the world still can't stop watching that scene. Because somewhere beneath the performance, there was truth, pure, trembling, beautiful truth, and it's the kind that never really ends.